The special counsel has already accused Trump of a long list of obstruction schemes, including suggesting that his lawyer lied to the FBI or destroy evidence, and the moving of boxes full of documents to conceal them from the FBI. Joining me now are two former federal prosecutors, Joseph Moreno and Elliot Williams. Joseph, as you heard there, I mean, he moved the boxes, then allegedly, according to this indictment, tries to get two underlings to go delete the server that has the video footage. And then in this indictment, there is also a discussion of loyalty, about whether the two individuals who were a part of this alleged scheme were loyal. I mean, if you're a prosecutor, this is sort of like straight out of like the fiction books here.
Abby, this was already a strong case, right? By virtue of the simple fact that the boxes of documents were in Mar-a-Lago. That's the case. Now I assume that Donald Trump, if this went to trial, I assume what he'll really play hard on is the argument that, well, I thought they were declassified. I thought I was allowed to have them. I thought it was okay that I had them in this compound that's guarded by the Secret Service. Well, that argument already has some legal problems. It's not a great argument, but it's sort of decimated now by these obstruction allegations because, okay, the response would be, if you really thought you had the legal right of possession of these documents, why did you go through these efforts to hide the fact that you had them? Through your underlings, through even your attorneys. So I don't know how he gets out of that.
Well, earlier this morning, I heard one of the 2024 presidential candidates, Vivek Ramaswamy, saying, well, this is a process crime. I don't really think that we should be, throwing the book at a former president over a process crime. But as Joseph points out, it goes to actually the heart of the primary crime here, which is he knew that the documents that he had in his possession, he was not permitted to have that.
Look, we as a nation need to purge the words process crime from our vocabularies. It came up in the context of the former president before, months ago, in the context of his impeachments, and it's coming up again now. Obstruction of justice as a crime, and this is the Supreme Court, I believe, has said this, goes to the heart of the integrity of the criminal justice system. And we cannot have a functioning system if people are going to impede the government's ability to investigate crimes. So setting aside the questions that Joe was talking about whether, perhaps the president might have thought he were entitled to documents or whatever, he knew and they knew, and it's documented in this indictment, that there was an open investigation. They'd received a draft grand jury subpoena. And then after that, once they found out that they were being investigated, took quite elaborate efforts to hide evidence and suppress it. That in a functioning society, that conduct cannot happen. And so shame on Mr. Ramaswamy for attacking us as a nation in the way that he did right there. It's really shameful, Abby.
I keep getting this question, too, from people of all walks of life. Like, how do you reconcile the fact that David Petraeus, Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden himself, Mike Pence were not charged with issues regarding classified documents, and Trump is? And I think if you put Jack Smith on the spot and if you were forced to answer, I think he would say it's largely because of this. Like, Trump probably could have gotten a pass, even with possessing the documents, which is illegal, but he probably could have wrangled himself out of it. But it's the obstruction. I don't know how the DOJ could ignore this now.
And frankly, and to that point, the obstruction is actually far easier to convict them on here at this point than any of these document charges, which are complicated or going to require litigation over how you get classified information in front of a jury. All you have to prove here is that they knew there was an investigation and they tried to obstruct it, and we could prove that tomorrow.
That's right. Yeah, I want to talk about something that this superseding indictment really raises, which is Trump employee number 4. He is implicated in a lot of this superseding indictment. He is an IT worker who CNN has confirmed is named Yuscil Taveras. According to this timeline here, he was the person that De Oliveira met with to try to ask about the video footage, how long it was retained. He told the IT director that the boss wanted it to be deleted. And what's interesting is that there's some new reporting in the Washington Post that indicates that this Trump employee number 4 is a cooperating witness. He came forward after the first indictment to say, I have more to tell you. What does that say to you?
Well, I think, number one, the Trump folks ought to be concerned about this cooperating witness. But I think as a broader point, Abby, this indictment has not been stress tested, for lack of a better way to put it, and we haven't really seen what the credibility of some of these witnesses are. A lot of the obstruction, at least as documented in the indictment, the obstruction allegations, hinge on the testimony of employee number 4. And the fact that he's a cooperating witness is the kind of thing that defense attorneys will criticize him over at trial. You don't know, does he have a criminal history? What's in his background? All of these things are things that you can use to attack a witness's credibility, which could undermine the charges. Now, that said, you have these text messages and other evidence that would help your ability to prove.
But one of the other factors in this case is how many of these potential witnesses, even people we're not even talking about, have lawyers who are being paid for by the Trump PAC. Trump employee number 4 was one of those witnesses, and then he had to move to another attorney once he became a cooperating witness. As this unfolds, could we see more of that? Could we even see someone like De Oliveira or even Walt Nauta deciding that it's in their best interest to get some independent counsel?
Sure. I mean, look, it's not improper or even illegal for an employer to pay legal fees for their subordinates, but it definitely creates a conflict of interest, and it really prevents those subordinates from effectively cooperating. So it makes me uncomfortable. I mean, I get it that these people probably don't have the money to pay for expensive white-collar defense counsel, but at the end of the day, if they really want their own rights to be watched out for, I wouldn't trust a Trump attorney.
And once they become adverse to each other, like once one of them really formally does flip, they have to get new counsel because they're adverse.
And I should say, we don't know with 100% certainty that he's a cooperating witness, but it certainly is suggested in this and in the reporting. I want to play what Michael Cohen, someone who knows Trump well and knows what it's like to be someone who has to make a break from Trump, has said to some of the folks who are part of all of this in these indictments.
Walt Nauta, run. Carla, run. Run as fast. First of all, he's not going to get you an attorney. He's not going to pay for it unless you stay on message. And if you stay on message, you will end up behind bars. There's no doubt about it.
The other part of this is, of course, Trump and what kind of person he is.
And Michael Cohen knows, right? I mean, better than any of us. We can speculate from the outside. He knows from the inside. I mean, that it's really just, you want to, the best, most painful step probably, but the best step is to kind of break yourself out of that orbit, because otherwise no one's watching your back.
And it's very expensive to do that. I mean, it's costing Trump and his PAC $40 million to defend against all of these cases. Elliot and Joseph, thank you both very much.